It is March the 31st, 2021. I'm Andy, and this is the Minorcan Mullet Report from the Golden Ray Wreck Site, the St.simons Sound. And we made it out today, and we noticed that the chains were tight. Both blocks kind of had that familiar angle that we saw earlier when the Section 7 was undergoing cutting, but something just didn't look quite right to us. We'll have more on that a little bit later, but we'll show you what we saw. As we got around, it's obvious that they have tightened up on the blocks. We can see that they're kind of leaning in. They have a little bit of that angle heading back towards the Golden Ray. You see them kind of pulled over. But we were monitoring radio traffic, and again, we could hear that there was stuff going on there at the site. We got some shots here, and obviously you can see that the chains are pulled up. They're kind of snug, but we never saw any cutting going on. We kept looking, and eventually, once we got around the other side of the ship, we saw some telltale evidence that maybe something is just not quite right. But here we can see that the hull side or inshore side of the chain is actually in the groove, and it is looks like it's ready to go. It was the offshore side that we had a little bit of something just wasn't quite right about that. Well, we kept getting around the ship, and as you know, we kind of try to go around this thing where we have our camera set up, and everything kind of faces the right. We're actually here on the north side or the St. Simons side of the ship, and kind of going around it and looking at this would actually be what would be the stern section of the Golden Ray, and on the offshore chain here, we can see the chain it's not in the groove. It's not in that groove that we saw originally when the Section 7 cut was started, more than a month ago. So something is just not right. They haven't quite got it worked in there. It seems to be that this problem is still ongoing. Each one of these links weighs 80 pounds. So the divers are down there, and you can imagine that trying to move any sort of section of this chain is going to be very difficult to do for a human. So the thing has to be moved with either the VB or some of the cranes on site. Trying to get it worked in the position can be a daunting task. We're hoping that they can get it figured out here sooner than later, and try to resume cutting on this Section 7. And we've got some more pictures that are coming up on that placement of that chain where it might be a little easier to see, and that was from the bow section or the south side of the ship. The environmental boats were again on site. They were working out on the offshore side of the wreck, outgoing tide. And we got some shots of those guys. They were actively pulling oil boom today, absorbent pad, trying to pick up some of that oil that's in that sheen that's coming off the ship. And we saw more of that today. It's just become a fact of life that it's weeping out there, and we don't like to see it. We know it's a fact of the way this thing is being removed, that it's going to be there. We just wish that that $30 million environmental barrier was able to hold it all in, and it just it's getting out of it, and it's unfortunate. These guys are working as hard as they can, and we know that they are up against a mountain of a job. Well, back on the south side of the ship, this is where the bow was at one time. We could see that the car barges that were there yesterday have left. They were pulled out. And we can really see that this now section 3 that we were looking into is pretty much devoid of visible vehicles. We saw maybe one or two that were in there. Maybe they were in a position that the grabber couldn't really get in there to get them. Way over there to the left, you can just see the front ends of a couple vehicles in there. But for the most part, they've done a pretty good job. Here, we can see that the dive boat was still there. And if you look at the angle of that chain, that back chain, look how it's angled there. And you can really see that it's not in the groove. It's kind of hung on what would be some of the housing structure that would have been on top of the ship. But in the cutting groove, you could still see that it was there. It's just not quite falling into the groove. Hopefully they can get this rectified. That seems to be the problem, why the cutting is not resumed. Again, that's just an observation that we've made from the site. Word from Unified Command is usually it usually comes. Their news is usually delayed, and we're trying to give it to you as we see it and from our perspective of what it is we're seeing. And you guys are looking at the same thing we are. So hopefully, as you guys understand that and understand that we're just trying to relay to you what we're seeing out on the site. Well, that's about all the time we've got for today. We'll ask that if you haven't done it, hit that subscribe button, send us some comments, and most of all, we want you guys to stay safe out there.